Good day. We are the Group 4 and we will be discussing the different types of graphs and charts for presenting data that was assigned to us by our beautiful teacher, Miss Fritz Orbiso. The learning outcomes for this presentation will be: first, know the history and different types of graphs and charts. Second, know how and when to use specific graph or chart. And now, after learning the outcomes, let us now proceed to the first reporter.
Hi, my name is Christian Arnold Hoyompa, and today I'm going to talk about the history of circuit diagram. So a circuit diagram is a visual display of an electrical circuit using either basic images of parts or industry standard symbols. The history of circuit diagram involves people finding common ways to describe electronic components, so its development is a collaborative effort. In 1909, for example, the International Electrotechnical Commission, or IEC, started work to develop a common set of terms and symbols to describe electronics. Over time, electronic symbols have evolved to represent use in different countries as well as different time periods. So the shape of electronic symbols have changed over time. Some symbols were more prevalent in some countries. Electronic circuit symbols. Symbols are used for measurement and graphic representation of electronic objects. We can see in the picture that our electronic devices are represented in symbols. Electrical symbols are used to simplify the drafting and to understand the drawing. Electrical symbols are required to do the electrical drawing, and without the help of electrical symbols, we won't be able to do the electrical drawing.
Next is the timeline diagram. Timeline provides a visual representation of event that helps you better understand history, a story, a process, or any other form of event sequence in chronological order and displayed along a line. So, to better understand a story or a process, um, usually they use this timeline diagram because the events or the main events in a story or a process is arranged chronological order. Here are some examples of the earliest form of timeline diagram. The earliest form of timeline diagram was created by Jacques Barbeau Dubourg in 1753. It was annotated the timeline of history from creation. So he was um, attempting to create a timeline diagram from the creation of the world to the present in their time, and it includes names, descriptive event, group, thematically with symbol denoting character. In the picture, it may look small, but it is a 54-foot scroll. Next is this timeline diagram. It is created by Joseph Priestley. It is the first attempt to depict historical event graphically. It shows the lifespan of 2,000 famous people from 1200 BC to 1750 AD. So it is the attempt to record a chronological order of events showing the lifespan of 2000 famous people. What differs this is that it shows the event of a certain group of people. Next, earliest form of timeline diagram is like this. The French engineer Charles Minard illustrates this disastrous result of Napoleon's failed Russian campaign of 1812. It is basically it 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 doesn't really show is cascading event, but it shows one event but a differ of variables. In this graph, it varies the thickness of the line and and what time did it occur. The increase of thickness of the line is the recordings of the return of legs of the soldier with temperature on the retreat shown in the line graph at the bottom. Many consider Minard's original the best statistical graphic ever drawn. So it is the statistics of how many soldiers is being deployed on that timeline to that timeline. So still it is still um, called a timeline diagram. That will be all.
So next is the uses of timeline diagram. So there are several human engagement that can be put into a timeline diagram because human engagement requires time and it can be used as a guide for what is next for your process. Timeline diagram can also be used to understand the history since it will serve as a record in summarized and chronological form for a series of events, making it more easy to remember and familiarize. So these are the human engagement that can be put into timeline diagram. So we have the learning process, project management, studying history, business analysis, summarize historical events, outline legal cases, road mapping, portfolio management, advertising campaign, product making process, filmmaking, and etc. Next is the example of timeline diagram. So first we have the cell theory historical timeline. So this timeline diagram is a basic presentation. So we have the years above the arrow paired with the events that occurred in that year below the arrow. So this is one way on how you can present timeline diagram. So another way is like this. A timeline for the beginning of coronavirus. So similarly, we still have the years and the events. However, in this timeline diagram, we have the days specified. So this is another way on how you can present a timeline diagram. So presentation of timeline diagram depends on you as a presenter. It depends on the conditions, the requirements, the context of the report, and also it depends on what is applicable for your report. So there are a lot of things that you must consider upon choosing what structure of timeline diagram you want to follow. So I guess that's it for timeline diagram. And this is Onelio Lauron reporting. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Seth, and I'm going to talk about tree diagrams. A tree diagram is a data visualization tool, usually a drawing that shows the relationships between different pieces of information using lines that are connected and that have different branches. So, history of tree diagram. Who created tree diagrams wasn't really specified, but the most prominent proponent is Raymond Lull, a 13th century Spanish philosopher who authored a book that is a collection of tree-based diagrams of science and human knowledge. Although there is no specific date, it is believed that tree diagrams started to be utilized during the 12th century. They needed to invent tree diagrams because during the medieval Europe, scholars had gained knowledge from the ancient world, which is from Greek and Roman literature, and they needed new ways to make sense of the flood of the new knowledge at that time. So this is just an example of how tree diagrams were used during the Renaissance period. Now, there are many modern uses of tree diagrams. It can be used in an organization to show hierarchy of position of power. It can be used in linguistics to break down sentences and analyze statements. It can be used in mathematics and probability. And it can be used in computer science, specifically in the concept of data structures. So just a little bit of definition, data structures is a concept in computer science that deals with the storage, management, and arrangement of data. They are responsible for the designing of logic in the computer processes. There are many examples of data structures. They could be arrays, matrices, and in this case, trees. So there are 8 distinct types of trees in data structures, and all of them vary depending on how they are structured. In this case, let's look at a binary search tree. So the structure of a binary search tree is that every node can only have 2 children, 1 or 2 children. For example, 56 had 2 children, which is 30 and 70. They cannot have 3 or more children. So I use binary search tree as an example because it has a very understandable application. So the purpose of binary search tree is to look for a numerical data and a set of datas. For this example, this whole tree is our entire set of data. And for example, let's look for number 60. So the numerical data 60 is our goal. Now there are only 2 operations needed in a binary search tree: the greater than and less than operators. So let's ask the question first. Is 60 greater than 56? 56 is our root, which means 56 is our very first node. So if 60 is greater than 56, let's move to the right node, otherwise move to the left. Since the answer is yes, let's move to the right node, which is 70. Then let's ask the question again, is 60 greater than 70? In this case, 60 is not greater than 70. So let's move to the left node. And that's it. That's how you use a tree diagram in data structures.
Today, I'm going to discuss about the sunburst chart. This type of visualization shows hierarchy through a series of rings that are sliced for each category node. The sunburst chart is most effective at showing how one ring is broken into its contributing pieces. Hence, each ring corresponds to a level in a hierarchy with a central circle representing the root node and the hierarchy moving outwards from it. The history of sunburst chart. The very first mentions of sunburst maps can be tracked down to 90s, when various researchers experimented with nested pie charts or radial versions of tree maps. Hence, in a few years, software developers have adopted the technique for visualization of disk content. Max Howell's FileLight and Stephen Gerlach's Scanner are probably the best known examples of such applications. It was proven in this era that sunburst chart was very useful
in presenting informations. The uses of sunburst chart. The use of this chart are to show hierarchy and present informations in a part to a whole manner. Hierarchy is a visualization method that shows how data or objects are ranked and ordered together in an organization or system. Also, the part of a whole manner shows the parts of variable of its total, often used to show how something is divided. For example, world population broken down into a particular continent, country, region, state, city, or town. Salary expenses of employees across departments in an organization. This example of sunburst chart shows the type of tools used by mechanical engineering students, where the first layer shows the type of tools, and then the second layer shows the specific tools under the first layer, which are the type of tools.
Good day. I'm Roel Acabo Jr. and I'm going to talk about line graph. Line graph or line chart is a type of chart used to show information that changes over time. We plot line graph using several points connected by straight lines. The line graph comprises of two axes known as the x-axis and y-axis. Its history. One of the earliest line graphs known dated back in mid-17th century was credited to William Playfair, a Scottish political economist and engineer. Described as a statistician named Howard Weiner, Playfair's work, which was a line graph of financial data, as excellent and compelling. His line graph in 1796 consists of vertical and horizontal scales that gave justice to proportionality and is virtually similar to ones commonly used today. What are its uses? Line graphs are used to compare changes over the same period of time for one or more groups. It visualizes trends from a vertically grouped data. It shows pros and cons based on data gathered, and also, it is widely used in statistics. Common examples are average amount of rainfall per month and average daily attendance of pupils. In line to our field, we use line graph to keep track on our machines' performance and maintenance. Machines are generally designed to be durable and being able to perform under